And to tell us about the priorities of the Portuguese member state, the Portuguese presidency, we are happy to have Ambassador Cabral, who is ambassador from Portugal to Denmark. Welcome. Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. It is a really enormous pleasure to be here today, and I thank the organizers of this important event for inviting me. Namely, the Green Impact, organizers, the Creative Business Network, Dizzy and Sustainary, but all other organizers. As you said, you did not invite me because I am the ambassador of Portugal, but mainly because I am the representative of the rotating presidency of the European Union for this first semester of 2021. And I believe that this invitation is also an honor bestowed on my country, but also on the presidency of the European Union. When preparing this presidency, my authorities, my government, established at a very early stage as one of its top priorities the advancement of the green transition and the advancement of all issues related to climate, to environment, and to renewable energy. With a little more than a month still to go of the Portuguese presidency, because we'll be over in end of June, I believe that the moment is not anymore to speak about priorities or programs, but rather one of balance and assessment, albeit provisional. And it is always risky to make an evaluation of its own actions. The danger of being partial is big, but I assume it without shame. I think that the Portuguese presidency is doing a fine job, considering the prevailing conditions throughout most of the semester. And allow me to spend just one minute on this reality, because one cannot forget the very unique conditions that the presidency was confronted with the whole of Europe under lockdown, with travel restrictions, video conference meetings, the uncertainty of what conditions would be in place in the following days, weeks, months. All this was a logistical nightmare that was not conducive to a very stable work development. And above all, COVID-19 became immediately the top priority of the presidency and of all the other EU institutions, something that unavoidably diverted resources from other areas and caused unforeseen delays and postponements. I mention this because I believe it is important to put things in the right perspective. Not an excuse, but this was the reality during this month. When we began in January, our main concern in this area was to guarantee that the European Union remained a global leader in climate action, namely by promoting the competitive advantages of a climate-neutral and resilient economic model. The implementation of the European Green Deal would be a cross-cutting priority and would contribute to turn Europe into the first climate-neutral continent by 2050. This is why we believe that the biggest breakthrough during our presidency was probably the political agreement on a draft climate law reached last April with the European Parliament after very intensive and difficult negotiations. We expect this agreement to be formally adopted both by the Council and by the European Parliament in the incoming month of June and to become law soon afterwards. This agreement maintains untouched the most sensitive objectives originally set, namely the intermediate target of reducing 55% of greenhouse effect emissions until 2030, and the objective of achieving a climate-neutral European Union by 2050, in line with the objectives of the Paris Agreement. Of course, much remains to be done in order to implement this law and to attain those objectives. But, in our view, a big step was given. Other deliverables, as we like to say in the European Union jargon, other deliverables reached this semester could also be mentioned. The matter is highly technical, and I'm a layman in these matters, you will excuse me. I hope the audience will have a better grasp of the realities I'm speaking about. With this disclaimer, let me mention, nevertheless, the approval by the Council of the strategy for chemicals in the context of sustainability, or the formal adoption of the Programme LIFE 2021-2027. And Programme LIFE, as you all know, is the EU funding instrument for environment and climate action, or the political agreement reached on the third pillar of the fair transition mechanism. But most of the issues under this large umbrella demand rigorous technical preparation, intensive negotiations between member states, and then between member states and the European Parliament, that also has competences in this area. And these negotiations with the European Parliament can sometimes be excruciating. Not to mention the highly demanding implementation phase after an agreement is reached. Therefore, many of the issues on the agenda could not be completed, but that was also not our realistic purpose. The purpose was, and will continue to be, until the end of June, so 1 more month, to try to advance all current dossiers and remove as many hurdles as possible so that the next presidency, which will be Slovenia, can continue the work in a stable and orderly fashion and hopefully COVID-free, or at least in a much more bright environment. Among those dossiers that will be transmitted to the next presidency, let me mention the Fit for 55 package, the revision of the European Trade of Emission Licenses, known as CELE, the strategy on batteries and its residues, and very important, the effort sharing regulation. To succeed in these endeavors, a joint effort of all member states and a fair contribution by each one will be required. In the area of energy, the focus is given to the updating of the directive on renewables and also the directive on energy efficiency, as well as the energy system integration strategy. 1 week ago, a special session of the European Council, as you all know, it's the gathering of all EU heads of state or government. A special meeting was convened with the main purpose of giving political guidance concerning many of these ongoing negotiations. The focus of the meeting at the end was somehow diverted by the situation in Belarus, as we all know, but the conclusions of the meeting on climate change issues are worth mentioning, and I recommend its reading. The leaders of the 27 member states reaffirmed their commitment to the advancement of climate change issues. But while this is a common endeavor, national responsibilities, obviously, the establishment of national targets and burden sharing remains the foundation for the success of climate change action. And another important dossier with its essential impact on climate issues is the reform of the common agricultural policy, something to which we also gave a lot of attention. A meeting of the Agri-Fish Council, the meeting between ministers of agricultural and fisheries, was held a few days ago, on 26 and 27 of May, in order to give impetus and direction for the advancement of this essential European policy. And 2 additional comments. The first one concerns oceans. As a country so much connected and dependent on the sea, like Denmark for that purpose. We strongly argue that any climate and environment strategy has to take the oceans as an integral part. This seems obvious, but is not always present. Throughout the semester, the Presidency has organized a series of events exactly with the objective of raising awareness to this topic. The next event will happen on June 2nd to 4th under the title Athletic Cooperation for Renewable and Sustainable Ocean. To complete the cycle, we will organize on June 8 in Lisbon a conference with a colorful title, Blue Agenda in the Green Deal, with the participation of EU ministers responsible for the sea, followed by public panels of discussion on several topics. The objective of this conference is to reinforce the importance of the sustainable blue economy in Europe's economic recovery and the role that an integrated maritime policy should play in a blue, resilient, digital, social and global Europe. I mentioned resilient, digital, social, global Europe because these were the main areas of priorities of the Portuguese presidency. The second and final comment I would like to make relates to Denmark. I have the privilege of representing Portugal in this country since last December. I arrived 1 week before lockdown was decided. A country that is an undisputed leader in many aspects of fighting climate change and pursuing energy efficiency initiatives. A role also reflected in the external front. And let me mention, just as a way of an example, the groundbreaking importance of the Conference on Climate organized last January by Denmark with the participation of Ministers of Foreign Affairs, the very first one with the participation of John Kerry in his new capacity, and the very first one with the new North American administration. In this context, the Portuguese presidency has always counted on the support and advice of Denmark for the advancement of all the many issues covered under this large umbrella, and we are obviously thankful for that. I wish, not before ending, I wish all of you a very fruitful week of activities, of discussions, of impact, of green impact. I was impressed by the learning a few minutes ago that there will be around 175 speakers. That even gives more importance to my presence here today, being one of the first of those 175. I'm impressed by the dimension of this event. I wish you all organizers the success and all participants a very instructive and useful week. And with this, I thank you very much for your attention and have a nice week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. May I ask you just one question? You said 175 speakers was impressive, but I was thinking you have to drive an agenda of economic recovery and at the same time look for all our goals when it comes to sustainability. And if you could do it on your own, then it would be fine. But you have to make sure that all the member states are fine with, the agenda. And then you mentioned the European Parliament that has to be consulted in many cases, and you have the Commission coming with proposals. So, and you have 6 months. So, how is it running? I think that's more impressive than the 175 speakers.
Well, every country has to go through it. This is a rotating presidency, and of course, this is an opportunity, especially for smaller countries, to be on the steering wheel. So we look to it with anticipation and with the wish of leaving an imprint on the course of action of the European Union as a whole. We were somehow lucky that the European Union reached far-reaching and breakthrough decisions last December, in the end of the German presidency, especially the multi-annual budget and also this next generation instrument to finance the economic recovery. And that is why the motto for our presidency from the beginning was time to deliver. Now, the big decisions were taken, and now it was time to deliver.
And then you also have time to consider such when a dictator forces an airplane to land in a certain airport. Then you also have since the main roads and guidelines have been set, there's also the ability of the European Union to react in such particular instances.
Yes, of course. That is also part of the presidency role. Although, and this is a very difficult system sometimes to explain and to understand, we have the Council of the European Union, which is the ministers, and that's what the presidency do is presiding over this, and the different formations of ministers, foreign affairs, economy, finance, environment, and so on. And then there's the European Council, which is the heads of state and government, and that's where the big decisions are taken. And that has its own presidency. Right now, President Georges Michel from Belgium. So the big decisions are taken on that framework, and the big reactions to big events like the one you mentioned are taken after. And then it's up to the Council of Ministers to start developing and implementing those basic decisions that are taken hand in hand with the Commission, obviously. Then we have the European Parliament, where all countries are represented by elected officers, of course. And there, as any other parliament, the relations between executive and legislative are not always as smooth and compromise-driven as in Denmark.
I can tell you, you said you arrived here in December last year. A couple of years ago, a Portuguese startup charmed all of us at the Creative Business Cup. It was actually Arla that we will also hear from this afternoon. Arla is the world's 5th biggest dairy producer. They put out a challenge, what's the future of food? And the winner of that challenge was the Portuguese company called Miss Can. And it's actually canned seafood. So tuna, sardines, anchovies. But Miss Can had done something extraordinary in the sense that not just making it the product itself, but actually the packaging, the storytelling. They had traveled up here on a small moped, and they won that Arla food challenge, the Portuguese startup Miss Can, and I think they're still doing quite well. I've seen their products in Irma and other places. So that has been it's been a pleasure working with Portugal. We've had a partnership with Fundación Serralves in Porto also for a couple of years. So, but thank you very much, Ambassador Cabral, for telling us about the priorities of the Portuguese EU presidency.
No, it's me that thank you very much for having me.
Obrigado.